So welcome to In Conversation with ARgENTUM. And today we have two fantastic women with us. We have Hannah Cook. And Hannah is an incredible marketeer. She's the co-chair of the DEI for the British Beauty Council and has done a million things, as well as had her own podcast. But I'm going to get you to introduce yourself. And just before you do that, I'm going to say hi to Riley Kate. Thank you. She's an international makeup artist, renowned celebrity and supermodel makeup artist.
So good.
Vogue, Grazia Elle, all the major mags. But welcome. I hope we have a fun conversation about being women in business and our journeys. And I'm sure we will have fun. I'm also going to introduce you to the archetype cards. We'll do a bit of a reading. But before we do, will you tell us a bit about yourself and just set the scene,
Sure.
Hannah?
Firstly, thank you so much for asking me to be on this today, because we've chatted loads already and I cannot wait to see what happens. That was a really good roundup. I think I started my career many years ago as a hairdresser. I have loved beauty from the day I can remember. My Friday nights were not going out drinking. They were sat at home doing my makeup, washing it off and doing it again. So why I didn't become a makeup artist like you, I have no idea. I went into skin instead. But actually, I feel like I'm really lucky. I've had a really broad career. And while some people might see that as a negative, I see that very much as a positive. I've worked in commercial, partnership management, and then I spent the last 5 years working in marketing with some incredible brands globally around creative campaigns, consumer insight. And actually off the back of that, every time I had the most amazing conversation with somebody, I'd walk away saying, I wish I could bottle this and share it, because I felt like I learned so much and I was so inspired by the industry. And that is where Future of Beauty Unfiltered, the podcast, was born. It is no more. It's something that I absolutely loved. During my time, we got to meet the most amazing brands. I also, in my free time, am the co-chair for the British Beauty Council for the DEI pillar. So diversity, equity and inclusivity is something I'm also very passionate about. And then on top of that, I'm a mum and I like to teach children as well vocally. So there's a real mix. I'm a bit of an all-rounder and I definitely do too much, but that's probably a good summary of where I'm at.
When did you become a mum? How old is your
Little one.
little one?
So I have a boy. He is 7. So I became a mum when I was 30. So I'm 37 now. I had this obsession, and I was very lucky that I got to see this come to reality. I wanted to be a mum by the time I was 30. I didn't want to be a really young mum, but I also, in my head, didn't want to be an older one. That was the number. I think I had him actually when I was 29 and a bit, but I achieved my goal. It's the only goal I'd managed to achieve in that time. So yeah, 7, and
Fantastic.
He's a whirlwind.
And you, Riley Kate?
Yeah, I had my baby when I was meant to do intro first, but yeah, I had my baby when I was 27, 28 now. He's 1, and he's also called Finn.
Yes.
Yes.
Great name.
Yes.
Oh, you both got fins.
Yep.
Yes, we both
Is
got
it
Finns.
F-I-N-N?
Yes.
Yes. No, I think we spoke about this last time. Great choice.
So we got the crazy Finns on the loose.
Yeah.
But I'm from Las Vegas. It was like military kids. I moved around a lot, but I was living in Las Vegas, and I was like, actually, I don't want to go into nursing. I want to be a makeup artist. And my parents were like, what's that? Like, I don't know about that. And so I applied to like all these makeup artist schools. My parents were like, we're not going to sign these waivers and like have you go off at 16 to London or New York. Like, this is crazy. So I was like, fine, like I'll do it your way. Moved out when I was 17, saved up, moved to New York, and was just emailing everybody like, please let me assist you. I'd love to assist you. And I finally got a couple of breaks and was really lucky to be in like the fashion and celebrity scene in New York, and then met my husband who's British and moved over to London and came to join you guys here in London.
Oh, wow. And 17, That's really young.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was desperate to get out of Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So how old are you now?
28.
You're 28.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't even hit the 30 milestone.
I know, she smashed it.
I'm ready for 30 though.
Well,
I do feel like 30s are better.
30.
Personally, I loved my 30s. I feel like I kind of got enough under my belt, but also enough sass to not care about the silly things.
It's
Well,
like
I've loved my 40s. So I'm a mother of 4 boys. I notice we all have boys.
I do think there's a theme there.
There's a theme there. And I will be 50 this year. And started ARgENTUM 13 years ago. Took off time to be a mum before that. Had a sort of a varied career meandering, but I always wanted to have my own business and to create something and to share beauty, which by the sounds of it, all of us have had boys and also want to share beauty. It seems to be a bit of a theme. For those of you that know ARgENTUM, we have always worked with archetypes, and each of our products comes with one of 12 archetypes. We've created fragrance around each of these archetypes, the scent of, and we look at cards that are drawn at random with the product that you purchase, or if you pull a card at random, we write a monthly oracle for them. But really it is about the power of projection on imagery. So I was very into tarot when I first started the business. And when I met Sam, my husband, ARgENTUM's creative director, he was like, let's illustrate some cards for the archetypes, and why don't we put them at random in the product? So they've been very much a part of the business from the beginning. It's a way of accessing beauty within, because I believe beauty is balance, and finding that balance within is good for the soul. It's good for the skin, because it's good for the overall health of your being. So before we properly get into the podcast, I wanted to do a little card reading for each of you. And then I actually, if you guys want to do a reading for me too, that would be great. And I'll show you how to do it. But who's going first? I'll do a bit of a shuffle.
Do you want to go first? Because I had one recently.
Pick a card, any card, as they say.
Do I tell you what it is?
Yes.
It's the ruler.
The ruler. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, it's 12 archetypes that we have. And then we have the become, which is the 0. So you've picked the ruler. And ruler is number 10. If you look at the card, and so this is how it kind of works. Tell me what you notice first, or what jumps out from the image. Don't block yourself. Don't second guess yourself. Just sort of try to point in or describe something that you see first.
The key is like the first thing that really like jumps out at me.
Okay. So for those people that can't sort of see the card, this is a beautiful stag. It has scales in the image. It's a very regal looking image, and it's the ruler is the archetype it represents. So we know this is to do with something that you're in charge of or that you look after. And there's so many layers of that, because it can be how you rule yourself, down to how you look after your child, or at work, there's whatever you're in charge of. But you've pointed at the key. What do you think of when you think of a key? What does the key give you?
I don't know. It kind of like holds the
access.
Yeah, holds the access.
Yes. So is this an energy that you feel comfortable with? Like if I said to you, you're in charge in the room, how comfortable are you in that space?
I think it depends on the room, right? Like at my house, I feel like I rule the house. I'm the ruler of the home. And then, it varies depending on the work environment. Yeah. Podcast is maybe like not my natural environment. Maybe I'm like, Joy, you're the ruler of this room.
Or Hannah, the seasoned expert.
Should we stop with this now?
Okay, so it's about the key, and it's about unlocking something. So I'd say you've drawn this card into this particular time of your life. I think people can't get stuck in an archetype. The whole point of archetypes is to have an equal measure of all of them in balance and express them in this way, and none of us can or do. And we can kind of ride different versions of, express some more than others. But really it's about looking at the balance, because each of these does have a shadow. And so really I would say, however this energy is manifesting in your life at the moment, and you might even think of something now where you think about, yep, it's how I rule the home. You mentioned something about home, that you rule the roost there. There may be something that you feel needs unlocking in terms of how you balance it. It could even be how you're ruling work and home life balance, being a mom, and then your career at the same time.
It's a tricky balance to get right, I think.
Very much so. I find this energy particularly difficult to balance. It's an energy that people don't understand. They can see it quite rigid, like demonstrative king of ruler, or very authoritarian, but it really isn't. And actually the stag is quite vulnerable. It's not seen as a lion or something very, very strong, but within the vulnerability, there is strength, and it's finding the balance of firm but fair, giving time to each of these things and yourself.
Sometimes it could be about wanting to take charge, right? Rather than actually automatically having that power. It could maybe be that as well. I think when you become a mum, there is that element of there's how you just naturally respond to it, but then there's your desire for how you want to be. It's like we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
You kind of think you know how you want to be, and then there's how you are, and sometimes they aren't the same. So it's where you rebalance that back out.
Absolutely. And how you express yourself at home and at work. I mean, I think for all of us, there's different ways that we are with other people, to the people that are closest to us, to the outside world. And I suppose when you think of your sun sign, or in astrology, you think about how you project out or how people see you, as opposed to your moon or the inner workings of your mind. They can be very opposing. Some people have their sun and moon are the same sign or something, or it's quite similar, but it can be very, very different, or how you're expressing things at home. So I mean, you might have comment about it. Does that ring true?
No, I think so. I think it's like been really tricky to get the balance right, and to like feel comfortable with the way also that you're parenting and the way you see yourself. I always saw myself being a parent in a certain way, and I'm finding it's harder to like break old patterns or the way that you were taught than I thought it would be. And
your partner's way as well. If you have a present, other partner that's helping raise, you've got two opinions where two people were raised differently, and that's hard too. That's a balancing act, because there's compromise needed at every stage.
Yes. It's two frameworks, and it's like you sort of mentioned, like, what do you throw away, and can you bring the best of both of those frameworks to build something together? There are scales in that image. Now you found the key in the image. Now you have the key. So this is about unlocking it, because I think you even talking about it, I think we can kind of solve things or balance things when we become conscious of them. Sometimes we're just not conscious of where the root is or how we fix something. But I think if you have the key to open the door, you are there. And I think that you're conscious of that, and it's something that you will go on to heal and get right. I think you will do it right.
Yeah. Also, I like the stags. I feel like when I see like stag or deer, I'm like, they're very mindful, and they're very aware of what's happening around them. And I think like the other day I was thinking I should be more like a deer and be a little bit more aware of what's going on, and like tune into the world around me, not just be so plugged into like my to-do list or my phone, or, kind of take a minute and be like, just be mindful.
I was going to say, what always blows my mind when I see and hear these readings is how accurate they are. And like when I first came in to HQ in Notting Hill and I had my first reading, I kept getting the same card. It would fall out of the deck when we were shuffling. I just could not escape this card. And it's amazing how these archetypes pick up that. And it's about the energy you're putting out, and it's about that place you're in that moment, right?
So it is. There's this element of like, well, is it woo-woo magic? So the one part of my brain is, it's woo-woo magic. But the other part of me says, no, this is our subconscious. This is the power of projection. Below the surface, that untapped part that you probably tap into when you're dreaming or sleeping or meditating is your intuitive part that you should be listening to, and that knows what the problems are and what needs balancing and what doesn't. So it's kind of like scrying. When you look into an image or you listen to lyrics or read poetry, you notice what is important to you. You just automatically go there.
Yeah.
And someone else, a million people have pulled this card in front of me over the last however many years, and they've all seen different things, or they'll go to different things, and it will mean different things because it's their subconscious projecting onto the image. So it's a powerful tool. And it's a fun thing to do. And so it's a never ending. You could pull them daily. You could pull a card in terms of how, and I think cards should always be empowering. To me, yes, I read tarot, but fortune telling's fortune telling. And I think it can be a bit misleading because we are creating our own reality all the time. And you don't want to sort of be stuck or restricted by a fortune teller said X, Y, or Z. But if you can use the card to just tap into your own higher self, your subconscious, and learn to use your own intuition and use it for good. In how do I make this a better situation, or I feel a bit blocked here, what energy should I look at?
I think what I love about it as well is the fact that it's connected to a fragrance, and kind of putting my beauty hat on a little bit. There's so many things in the beauty category, which is why I love it so much, that it's not always about where you're at, but where you want to be. And a lot of the time in life, we're striving towards, like I said before we started recording, I decided I was having a kid at 30 and that was my goal. There's other things and there's other elements of my personality that I naturally put out, and there's things that I would like to put out more. And what I love about the beauty category is it allows you to do that, allows you to express yourself. And what you've done here, which is so unique, is take that desire and that expression and assign it to a sensory fragrance. So actually, when I use your fragrances, sometimes it's not because it's where I am, it's where I want to be. And I think it's the same with makeup. You know, if you want to feel like you're not feeling that confident and you're having a breakout, or there's something that you don't like about what you see for whatever reason, there's things you can do to help project where you'd like to get to. And I think that's really powerful. And
it's like a healing.
It really is, but it's that projection of you get back what you give. And so if you're giving a certain energy, I think that's what I really like about these as well, is that it does connect to something more than just, here's your reading. You can connect to it on a sensory level.
Yeah, but beauty is not just skin deep. So formulating when we first started and getting the science right and doing a topical application, I just, in all honesty, couldn't say that was what beauty was all about. Because when you're glowing on the inside, or you feel good and well-rounded and balanced, and let's face it, most of us don't all the time, or we see rare glimpses of it in our life.
I tried to tell my boyfriend I woke up looking like this morning, and he didn't believe me. So
it's something that we always have to work on.
Yeah.
But it had to be a part of ARgENTUM, because we had to nod to that. We couldn't just say, here, apply a cream and that will solve all your problems. It is a holistic thing. And it needs to also it has an emotional effect, and your emotions do have an effect on the way you look and your skin.
But beauty's aspirational. I think the challenge is balancing the aspirational and the attainable. I think that is the challenge. I think sometimes it can, like with the scales on your card, it can go too far the wrong way sometimes, dependent on your own personal views. And I think it's always going to be, that's what I love about the beauty and balance.
Yes.
Is about that balance.
Yes, it's our motto, because for me, beauty is symmetry, and we're always looking for that symmetry. And so this word beauty and balance to me are interchangeable. So then the philosophy needs to be about finding that.
It's really interesting, because when I think about it, it's about trying, it's that journey of trying to maintain balance. I don't think I can tell you at any point in my life, as a working woman, a mum, a daughter, I've ever gone, today is a balanced day. I'm so neutral. I don't think I've ever had that moment. And so for me, and it's so personal, it's about what we have to do and the journeys we go through to maintaining that balance, whether it's the demands in life and meeting the demands external, aligning it with the internal desires and aspirations. And I think that's something that's, if you have really honest conversations with people about, can actually be really humbling and really eye-opening. It's fascinating.
I like to try as a Virgo. I like everything in its box.
Of course you're a Virgo.
And then there's another part, I know, well, I'm a Pisces moon then, and I sort of flit between it's all perfect and then it's all
chaos. Yeah, I'm a dragon. I'm just fire everywhere. Yeah.
And so that's the swinging part of the pendulum.
Yeah.
And there's the masculine and the feminine, and the knowing and the not knowing, and it being clear and then unclear. And this movement is the movement of the universe, and this sort of backwards and forwards is pulsating, so much so that this creates life, this movement. And it's interesting because it's the spark of creativity, it's the seat of everything, and it's this pot of gold over the rainbow that we're all trying to achieve. Let's see what card you get. Let's do a shuffle.
Okay.
Hannah, for you. And
Do you want the ruler back?
Do you want the ruler in? Yeah, because the ruler might pop out again. You never know. Sometimes
card were
that
you getting?
happens.
What card was I getting?
Yes.
So the card that I've had a couple of cards now, and I do spend a lot of time on their website pulling cards if I need some form of inspiration. I'm not going to lie. I'll be like, what am I getting today? It's my daily horoscope. The card that I pulled the first time I ever came to ARgENTUM was Become. And it was when I was at a very transitional stage of my career. I was moving away, and literally it was that day, that morning, I had found out I was moving away from one position into another, and it was very fresh, but it was at that point where I couldn't tell anybody. And so the fact that this card kept coming up for me was really powerful. And actually the connection that I had to that smell was crazy as well. And it's kind of become an anchor. It's a really special fragrance for me.
To explain Become, just so that people know what it is, it's a fish. It's like a fish out of water. It's a salmon fish actually jumping upriver. But it is symbolic of completing a cycle, you know, the salmon's life cycle of going into the sea and then jumping back up the river to the place of its birth before they release milt and the next generation comes through. So this completing a cycle and you moving on, but just wanted to give that image of that fish out of water.
I think I'm still a Become, if I'm completely honest, but we're working on it. I'm not quite sure if I'm swimming upstream. I'm swimming somewhere, and I will continue to swim.
You're heading back out to sea.
I think so. Either that or pasture's new. I'm not sure. I'm going to go with this one. Ooh, haven't pulled this card before.
Oh, I'm
The
intrigued.
Lover.
Ooh, I like that one for you.
Lover.
I really liked this fragrance after I tried it the other day as well.
Turkish rose absolute. Pink
So-
peppercorn, really, really mysterious. Not a, what I say, Barbie rose. This is it's a unisex fragrance.
Yeah, it's not feminine.
Yeah.
It's not feminine at all. So what do I see? I think the first thing I noticed was the swans.
Which part of the swans?
The heads. In particular, the two coming together.
Okay. So to describe this is the Lover. It's depicted by two swans made for life. It's on quite choppy water.
Yep.
And there's a lighthouse in the background. And then there's a full moon above. So you've got the energy of the moon. You haven't gone to any of that. You've noticed the face and the connection in the face of the swans. So that's really the mirror. And I would say this is a card about soul connection. So although it says Lover, I personally, and everyone can project and see different things into it, but your soul connection can be an animal, a friend, a parent, a child, a partner, an actual lover. But it's the relationship in your life that allows you to see you. It is the mirror of you. Sometimes it can be quite tumultuous. You don't like what you see. And sometimes it can be very beautiful. And it's a way of allowing yourself to fall in love with yourself. I suppose it's when you fall in love with someone, that point in the relationship where everything just feels incredible. It's like they see you for who you really are and you see them. It's like they can do no wrong. It's like there is this beautiful glow. This is really about this relationship. And I don't know if you know who that person is in your life. You don't have to name them.
No, I actually agree with you. I think it's myself. I think it's funny because obviously I've just done the Spotify playlist for the Lover.
Did you?
Mr. Lava, yeah. So I had that moment of, dang, I've literally just done this. And I think it's myself. When I created the playlist and all the other elements, but actually just in general, it wasn't about the romantic. So I don't look at this and think romantic.
Yes.
I think this is something, when I look at these two swans and their heads coming to connect,
Mirror.
it's a mirror, but it's also that when you have that connection, it kind of, it's that supercharge, that power up. And I'm definitely at a point in life where I'm fighting with what the universe keeps trying to tell me. And it's because I have goals and I have other things I want to do. And what the universe is pushing me towards doesn't necessarily align with that. I cannot tell you the amount of times my mother, who is also very spiritual, says, stop fighting it, just go with it. And that's a really hard thing to do. I think when you've had to fight for so long and kind of be so independent. And, you know, I was a single parent for a very long time. I have a really supportive partner now, but that's still very new in the grand scheme of my parenthood. No, I totally see that. I think it's really hard sometimes to accept what you see rather than, I think sometimes you can recognize it, but I think recognizing is one thing, accepting it's another. So when I see that and the mirror element, it resonates. It's very interesting.
They have this lovely calm. It's like if though it's their third eye is connecting the two swans, but it is a mirror moment.
It's
and
not
you're absolutely
turbulent.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. It isn't I don't look at that. It's quite interesting that it's on turbulent waters. And I think the fact that there is that beautiful lighthouse at the end, it's that light at the end of the tunnel. It is that case of, I think everything is temporary. I have to remind myself that as a mum quite often when I take that deep breath and want to throw him out the window, which I do on a regular basis. Everything is temporary. And I think when you're trying to balance and push for so many things as a person, you want it all at once. And if you can't be progressing, and you'll get this and you'll get this, you have your different streams of consciousness and things. You've got your mum stream, you've got your family member, your partner stream, you've got your career stream and all the other elements. And for me in life, I've always got to be even if it's tiny, I've always got to be taking one step forward or one shuffle forward. And there's always a moment where I therefore expect that all of them could be nicely, neatly aligned, because that's my OCD and that's what it tells me. And that's just not reality. It's like you're saying, it's that fluidity forward and backwards. And I think that's hard for me to accept sometimes, because instead of acknowledging the success and the progression in one area, all I focus on is the elements that haven't progressed as quickly as they should do. And so I think that's that, looking in the mirror and really accepting it, is going, actually, that's okay. And you should also acknowledge all of these other positive elements and the turbulence of kind of the water and everything. Is life, right?
Absolutely. And you have a lighthouse between them. And for me, and again, everyone is open to interpret these as they want. That's how these cards work. You're not supposed to just follow a guide. It's kind of what you see. But for me, the lighthouse is a sort of guiding light. But as they look at each other and as you look at yourself, you go back in, because if you're looking in a mirror, you're looking at yourself. There's just the reflection back, and then it all goes inside. And it's, to me, that is sort of like an analogy of the universe is inside you. The creation is inside you, and everything that you are creating is this mirror. Every reaction, everything around you is from within you, which is a bit of an odd concept. But yes, a lot of people will get this card and think, oh, lover, does this mean I'm going to meet a lover next week? And then you've got to say, yeah, sorry to burst your bubble, but the love journey is all about self-love.
I think self-love's a really hard thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Again, that's one thing I learned a lot as a mum, is like, I've always been very strong. And I remember when I had my son, my mum came up to me and said, I don't mean this in a bad way, which is always a really good start for a sentence, because you know it's going to be positive that follows. I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're a much better mum than I was expecting. And she didn't mean it in a nasty way. She actually meant it as a compliment. And when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of patience. I really was so focused on kind of driving everything forward, and that if people took a little bit longer than they needed or whatever, I would get frustrated. And when Finn came along, it was like it unlocked this sense of calm, where I just was so focused on this one little bean and this little human. And I was like, this is all I have to do today. And it kind of made the world go quiet. And actually for her, I'm, being better at this than she expected. It was that sense of that calm resonated from me. And I think what also came out of me was a ridiculous amount of love. And I've always been maternal. I've always looked after people. I've been that. I remember when I was on a school trip in year 6, I got given the Florence Nightingale Award. I'm very proud of this because there was like a massive thunderstorm and all these kids were absolutely terrified. And the teachers overheard me telling them all stories to try and distract them from the storm because they were all upset. So I've always been that maternal person, but actually as a solo person, without a child, without anyone else, I wasn't. necessarily. And actually, I feel like Finn unlocked that side of my personality. So with him, even though he drives me nuts and all those other things that, you know, everyone will understand, there's an untapped flow of just pure love.
Unconditional love.
It really is, that I didn't realise I had, I think is where what I take from this as well sometimes. So you can see the good and you can see the bad.
Did you ever get unconditional love before this time?
My mum would say, I did. Like, I have a very, my mum was, I have a mum and a dad. Otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
But my dad and mum parted ways quite in, a young part of my childhood. And I'm the eldest of 6, 5 girls, 1 boy. And I think because of my maternal instincts, I would look after them a lot. And my mum, my dad left when one of my sisters was 2 months old, which was really tough. And I ended up, picking up a lot of the slack, which at 10 years old is a lot. And so I think as the eldest, and we were talking about this, I think the expectations of the eldest children sometimes, particularly, from generations before, was not that I was always seen as a child, but a childminder, or you're the eldest, you should know better, even though there was only 18 months between my sister. And then as an adult, she says, I'm one of the eldest. And I say, no, I earned that title. That's mine. I'm the one that suffered. So, yeah, I did. But I think my upbringing was full of love in the home. But I think the expectations of me, even to this day, there's a lot higher than others. And so I think actually it's not unconditional love. I think it's understanding of failure, maybe, in a weird way. I think that's where my perfectionism comes from.
But it was obviously a real moment for you when you felt that unconditional love flow from you.
Yeah.
And that feeling like a different feeling to the other loves that have been before.
Oh, I don't think you can explain it, can you? I remember leaving the hospital and looking at the nurse and I said, do I have to take a test? Like, am I allowed to leave with him right now? I feel like I'm stealing someone else's baby. And I actually had to go back into hospital a week later because he had jaundice and a tongue tie. And I was so sleep deprived. And they all had, when they're in the little like UV tanks with the lights on, and they all got jaundice, so they all look the same. Yeah. And I remember about 4 o'clock in the morning, sleepily picking up a child that wasn't my own. And the midwife's finding it very funny. And I was like, you're not mine.
That's worrying.
I know. They didn't let me walk anywhere with him. I just held this baby. But yeah, no, you do. I don't think you can prepare yourself for it. But actually, I think it helped me heal from some of it. So with him, all I ask of him is to be kind. I send him into school every day. I say, have the best day. Just remember to be kind. That's all I ask of him. And what I'm really proud of is every single teacher, every single person that he's ever come across, that's the one thing they say. He's the most inclusive, sweetest kid. I mean, he's a nightmare, but he's those things that I've asked him to be, he does.
Important thing,
yeah, and I think failing is good. That's where you learn.
Yeah. And for you were also eldest child?
Also the oldest of 3 only, not 6. Your mom is doing...
She needed a telly in her room years ago.
To be fair, 6 is quite a lot. I rarely meet people your age that come from 6.
I think it's a gift. I feel very blessed for that. But yeah, it was, summer holidays were fun.
So yeah, I grew up really religious. So we were like, of our community, we were like we were a small family with, the 5 of us, and everyone else had like 7, 8 kids. And you're just thinking like, wow, I don't know how these moms are surviving and doing this. But that was like their kind of sole focus. And I think that was like something I didn't want for myself. I wanted to be a mom, but I didn't want that to be my entire
existence.
Value. Yeah.
Oh no, I was totally the same.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be, 5 girls, they were all, when I grow up, I'm going to have X amount of kids. And I was always, I'm going to have a business doing this. I was that 9-year-old that had her own cafe and cake shop and makeup and all that. I think that's why my mum was surprised at how good I was in the end, because it's never something growing up I wanted to did not want to be it, but it wasn't.
Same for me. I never planned to have, I was like, I will be a mother one day, but it was never on the radar.
Yeah, the forefront.
Yeah, never. And so actually that takes me, you've sort of touched on it now when I think about it. What were you doing as a kid playing? How were you expressing yourself? And do you find a link to what you do now to that? So quieten your mind, go back to that age of 8 or 9 and you're in the bedroom on your own and you're playing. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing my sister's hair and makeup. My little sister, my poor little sister, whose hair got pulled more times than, I mean, she tells everybody about it. She's like, you were so rough on my hair. And as my poor little sister was getting like done up on a regular basis.
Guinea pig.
Yeah. Thanks to her, everyone gets good makeup looks now. The bad ones were all back then. But yeah, I was doing that. And then also like wanted to be a mom. I think from the jump, I really wanted to be a mom when I was a younger kid. So a lot of baby dolls.
So you actually are fulfilling your soul purpose, and you certainly are expressing yourself in the same way. You've stayed very true to that. And I always think people can look at that. If they're unsure about how they should be expressing themselves, they should go back to that point where you were obviously beautifying things, nurturing things.
Were you formulating skincare?
Yeah, that's. I was just about to ask you, because what were you doing?
So for me, it's very different.
Tarot card readings.
Yeah. Well, you said you were brought up in a very religious background. So South Africa was very religious at that time. It was unacceptable to talk about divination, tarot. This is not something that was acceptable. So it took me a very long time to actually allow that part of myself to express that side of myself. It's kind of like in past lives I'd been burnt at the stake. Like, don't mention that type of thing. But I was into beautifying things, yes, like doing hair, makeup. But I also liked, a bit like you, had a radio show, was a business person, was selling things, had a till, sold everything in my bedroom, created a shop, that type of thing. So again, creating a brand, selling something. And I think when I had a dream about starting ARgENTUM, it was just a nighttime dream. I had no background in beauty. And I actually don't have this underlying, I'm not a beauty junkie, actually. And I think the philosophy of ARgENTUM is very much less is more. But it was about, I think if I boil it down, soul purpose being harmony, which is balance and beauty, and bringing that to people. And it's through the vehicle of the cosmetics, the fragrance, the skincare, the connection with the archetypes and the spirituality and the psychological side of that I am expressing myself. So it's not in this sort of obvious line. Yours was very clear. But if I look at aspects of my play, yes, I'm definitely expressing it, and in an unexpected way.
Mm. Mine was a bit different. If I think back, because obviously I lived in South Africa when I was little, because my dad was a coach, and then we went out there and stayed. But I was cutting hair off Barbies and my sister on a regular basis, which my mum was thrilled about. So the hairdressing side and the beauty element, yes. But the other thing, I was a real tomboy. I was a bit of a enigma, which I feel like I've remained, where I contradict myself a lot. You know, I love the beauty, but I also will happily just go and roll around in a load of mud and be a silly boy mum and just play. And so that's exactly what I did. I would climb trees. I'd race snails up my arms. It would not be that typical. I wasn't that girly girl. But in my downtime, I think socially I was very outgoing and I liked to explore. And if you told me I couldn't do something, I was doing it. It was that simple. And that's where the kind of business side, I think, really kicked in. So I fought against a lot of like the stereotypes, I think, that came from being female at times, particularly as my dad was a rugby coach. So we were in a very masculine environment. And so I did push against that a lot. And then in my downtime, it was, for me, is listening to you talk about the formulations and everything else. It's for me about having a moment with, whether it's with makeup or skincare, my head is always going a million miles an hour. And to be able to pick up a brush or a cream or a serum and just have that dance with myself of kind of either facial massage or making patterns, everything else for me just slows down. And I really enjoy having those moments and that time just for me. And I don't do it for anyone else. I don't do my skincare regime to impress someone else. It is for me because I feel good. It is interesting how I've kind of circled back on it. I think I lost my way with it. The other thing I always did was sing and share my voice. I absolutely loved it. I loved making music and noise, and the noisier the better. And I definitely still do that as an adult as well. So yeah, but I did lose my way a little bit because I think I was quite academic as a kid, and I got pushed down a route I didn't want to go down because my mum's response was always, you have a brain, use it. But what I wanted to do was paint and make art and do those kind of things. So I think I lost my way doing as I was told rather than, that's the eldest child thing, I think, doing as I was told. And then as an adult, I've kind of found myself again and said, no, this is what gives me joy, and I'm going to pursue those passions. And I think you do get lost sometimes along the way, don't you?
Absolutely. And so just getting refocused, am I expressing myself, my true self, my soul purpose? And it doesn't have to be anything grand. It can just be, as you say, it's even just boiling it down to a fundamental core word or thing. You know, sharing and teaching comes up for me with you when you talk, that you are a sharer, that you want to build people up. And for you is, again, there's the nurture element and creating beauty, which also makes people feel good.
Yeah, it does. It's really transformative, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about being a nurse, or you could have been a nurse, or your parents might have said that.
Yeah, I did like a dual high school college program. So in America, I did 2 years of high school, and then instead of going, finishing the last 2 years, then going to university, I did like a dual credit program where you can graduate with your associate's degree. My parents were like, yes, this is great for you. My boyfriend at the time was older. He wasn't in high school anymore. So I was like, great, let's just get out of high school. Let's, go study to be a nurse. And I was working at a bakery during the day and living my best life. And one of my coworkers was getting married, and I did her makeup for her wedding, and it looked really good. And I ended up then just suddenly having a little bit of
it felt good,
a little bridal makeup business. And then I was like, oh, I could do this in New York and actually have a living, make money. I don't have to stay in Vegas and be a nurse, 'cause I didn't really want to stay in Vegas. I didn't really want to be a nurse. And I was like, look, there's other opportunities I can do where I can make someone feel good. I can express myself, and I can just leave this place that I don't want to.
Because there's an element of nurturing someone in nursing.
Yeah.
But then there's also, with the makeup artistry, there's the creative side of creating beauty. So I see why you leaned into nursing and then sort of veered off into, because you are in a way transforming, healing, helping people.
I think also I don't think I have the skin for nursing. I took care of my great aunt when she was dying for the last year before she passed away. Yeah. And I just don't think I think nurses do an amazing job. I don't think that I could do that job. And
it's a thankless job sometimes.
I just think it would be difficult, for me mentally to do that job. And I think I have a little bit too thin of skin to
care too much.
Yeah, to watch people go through that. I think for me it would be hard to separate that from home life.
Yeah.
It's a particular type of person that can do that.
Yeah. I feel like when I had Finn, I remember walking away and being like, I'm going to become a midwife. I think every woman that has a child, come on, push. No, I feel like most women, when they do that, you walk away with a newfound respect. I'm really curious when you were talking about doing the makeup, because obviously sometimes you'll do it for people for wedding days or whatever, but then there's also the shoot makeup side, which sometimes I think in beauty, that's a hard balance, because obviously there's what you're trying to portray, and sometimes a look that you maybe are doing for people doesn't align with how they want to feel. Sometimes
I feel for shoots, it's the brief is always at least for me, mostly the same. It's we want them to feel and look luxurious.
Okay,
expensive.
So actually the brief is about a feeling. It's not about a look.
I feel a lot of the time, it's a feeling people want to capture with makeup. They want to feel luxurious. They want it to feel elevated, expensive. And I'm happy to make people feel that way. I think that's a great way to feel.
How do you make someone feel expensive? That's what I want to know, because I've used so many different products, and I've never sat there and thought, I feel expensive. I might be like, I feel good today. Like I'm peacocking hard today. That's how.
But you said that you do ritual on yourself with beauty.
Yeah.
Like you even said you put your makeup on, you took it off and you put it on again.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done that.
It's because the amount of times I'm like, this will never be seen in the light of day. I still remember, I'm like, that one time when I was 13, my eyeliner was on fleek.
So this is interesting because I create ritual for other people. I will apply the products onto other people or my son. If his skin's bad, I'll do a whole routine. I'll never give it to myself. It's
Why
really
not
interesting.
though?
I don't know why.
Is it like a busman's holiday? I know it sounds really silly, but like because you do it so much as your job.
Maybe because I can remember a time before ARgENTUM and I didn't then either. In a room, if we're all getting ready with this bunch of girls, I would be helping other people with their hair to do their makeup. And I've always made sure that I can get ready in 15 minutes even now. Like I can full makeup, clothes.
Is that
in
the
and out.
mom in you though? Is that the 15 minutes?
Always been like that. My sister takes about 5 hours and I used to just get so irate. I'd be like, I'm getting stale. My makeup's getting stale because I'd be waiting for hours. And so the slower she became, the faster I became. So I did just sort of take that into adulthood. But do you do ritual on yourself or do you take the time that you do with other people on yourself?
Probably not. This morning I did have the childminder come a bit early so I could do my own face. But on a day-to-day, no, maybe 5 minutes to get ready. And I miss it.
Yeah, but I think it's different though, because if you were to ask me if I'm in a room of people, I'm you. So my sister got married last year. My sisters are going to kill me when they listen to this podcast, by the way. Like all of my different sisters are different profiles. And one of them, she's up the first. She's not only got herself ready and not helped anyone else, but then when a hairdresser or someone comes in, it's, oh, can you put some curls in my hair? Oh. And then it's for the next 3 hours, it's, do I look okay? And I want to throw her out the car. Whereas for my sister's wedding day, I was doing her hair. She'd been recovering from leukemia, so her hair was, she had like a really short bob, and I had to get this bob into what looked like a bun, a slick back bun. So I was very stressed, and I was doing hair, makeup, everything else, and I was a bridesmaid, and I think I had 20 minutes in total to do myself. So when I'm with everybody else, I'm like you, always put them first. I am last, but when I don't have everyone else there, I will make the time because it's the only time I have.
You find that ritual is actually just, see, I do other things.
Yeah, well, that might be it.
So I'll just lie in an Epsom bath for a very long time, but I won't be, I'll just zone out. For me, sitting in water in a bath. I'm a bather.
I like baths, but I get bored. I swear that's part of my...
Do you have a wine and a TV show on?
I have no wine. I have a TV show. For me, that my downtime is Earl Grey cup of tea. But I think what it is it's I can't switch my brain off. So the reason the routines work for me is because I'm focusing on just one thing. So it's not about it's that moment that I talk about, that one singular moment. And I think when you're just any person, but in particular a mum, you know, I've got a million tabs open in my brain and I'm not just thinking, I'm looking at the clock and I'm kind of, right, he's got to get ready in this moment and I've got to go and do this and I haven't made his packed lunch and we've got to leave and he's decided he's working in his own 24 hours a day. Doesn't exist in Finn's world. He works on a 48-hour day and it doesn't matter if we have to be somewhere. This kid does what he wants. And so I think to work backwards and go, right, I've got half an hour that I can just stand here and just do my own thing, and I might listen to some nice music or a podcast or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's about just my brain doing that one thing.
Yes, and not being interrupted. It's just you having that little
I get very
upset
if I get interrupted. I'm like, it's my time. Go away. But I couldn't do the bath. I don't know. I work a lot in the bath. I don't know why.
Before you have kids, it's like you have such a sort of selfish life. And then it's like, it hits you like a ton of bricks when there's a baby attached to you. And then you're like, whoa.
I think it took me 6 weeks to feel like I actually had my crap together.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm a year in and I'm still like, whoa, shell shock.
They say 9 months in and 9 months out, you need to give yourself. Yeah. But yes, I would say you're still in sort of shell shock territory.
Yeah. I think also like my delivery was not my delivery itself was fine. It wasn't what I planned, which is fine. The recovery for me was terrible. I know that you also had quite the ordeal afterwards. So for me, like just my recovery for myself, my baby was okay, but the recovery for me was like terrible. I wasn't cleared to work out for like 5 months, I don't think. It hurt to walk. It was like, and my hormones are just a crazy roller coaster. So I think in the beginning I was like, what's happening? I went back to work at 7 weeks postpartum. My husband came with me to Paris, baby in tow. We're on the Eurostar. I'm going to a job. You know, he's been really supportive, but I think I was just like, where am I? Where's the codeine? Like,
that's very
what's
early.
happening?
I don't think people realize, I mean, we were talking about this before, and is that matrescence element. So matrescence, for anyone that doesn't know, it's recently just been put into the Oxford Dictionary, and it's now been recognized as a transition, like with pubescence and puberty. Matrescence is the transition of what a woman goes through physically, hormonally, emotionally, and mentally when they then become a mother. Because I think a lot of the time it was a case of people going, oh, everyone worries about the mom, what about the dad? And I do think that you should also worry about the dads because, you know, the women have had 9 months for their bodies to slowly adjust, but the women don't have control over any of that. And I think for me, I really found that difficult, is for someone that needs to feel in control. Didn't have that sense of control. And then afterwards, it is that up and down. But to go back after 6 weeks, your body, or 7 weeks, hasn't even worked out what. And I think my comment of the 6 weeks, don't get me wrong, he's 7 and I still sit there and go, I don't know what I'm doing. But I think that I've got this was being able to pack a bag and leave a house. That was, for me, it took me 6 weeks to be able to feel like I could just leave the house. And that's where I was like, I can do this.
And what made you go back so quickly or feel that you had to?
Yeah.
Like, what's your perception of your career and having a baby now, and then how you juggle that and how you feel about that? Because I personally took off 7 years, and I purposefully did that because I wanted to focus on being a mom. So I've just had heart palpitations when you said 7 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
I took
getting on an
7
airplane
months off and I thought that
and
was
I'm
short.
pushing my career. So I just want to sort of find out a bit more about that.
No, I think I'm very aware that if you're gone for too long, you'll lose your clients. Like, people will find other artists, and that's fine. That's, you know, obviously the shoot has to go on. People can't stop the shoots because one makeup artist is unavailable. I just think I was aware that, like, yeah, I want to keep going. I was privileged that my husband took a year off from work to be home with me and the baby. So he was able to tap in so I could travel for work and go on tours and do other things. But yeah, I think part of it was definitely like, I don't feel like I've made it yet, and I really want to make it. So I think there's like a drive to still keep, because in 18 years, like, my son's going to leave and then I'll just be at home with my husband. And
we've established you don't like him at the moment, so you know.
No, he's amazing.
Hannah's joking.
Yeah, I'm totally joking.
But then it's like, then what? Like, I think being a mom is like such an amazing, incredible thing. But I think I also wanted to make sure that I had my own identity outside of just being a mom. Because I think growing up in this really religious space, I watched all these women who maybe were treated poorly, who couldn't leave, who didn't have the option to leave, who didn't have any job experience. I felt like because their whole thing was being a mom, they were all these incredible moms, and they did everything right. There's no screen time, and they made every meal from scratch. But I felt like it kind of came at like a personal cost to them, like their long-term happiness probably. And I want my kids to see me and see that I'm happy and that I have other purpose outside of being a mom.
It's the balance.
Yeah. But it's a really tricky balance. I feel like anytime I'm excelling in work, I'm usually away, traveling, gone. And then I feel like I'm failing as a mom because my baby's at home without me, and he's probably like, where'd you go?
I'm split like that, where it's the Virgo in me wanting to be a perfection. Like, I want to be the best mom. I want to be the best career woman. And then this feeling that, well, there's no ways you can do both well. So you're just going to have to cut one, which is what I did for quite a while. And then how I started the business, or just before, there was the lead up to that, was just completely changed my mindset and actually changed my belief that one would be compromised, and actually go, I can do this and I can find the balance in it. And it was just like a flip in my whole thought process that became my truth, whereas it wasn't before. I have to say it wasn't. I just sort of believed you doing one or the other.
Yeah.
properly.
How did you find it when you were off for the 7 years?
I'm a creative person, so I did busy myself with being a homemaker. And then I had 3 kids, so I was pretty busy with the boys. They're older now, but got involved in lots of different bits and pieces. I actually just took time for myself. I'd kind of, like you said, I want to have a baby by the time before I'm 30, and it was like a goal in my head. That is what I imagined a mom to be, somebody that stays at home. It's interesting how you say you're influenced by what our mothers were like. Like, our mothers didn't have a chance to have a career.
Yeah, mine was a stay-at-home mum.
Yeah, so we
same.
try to, it's swinging the pendulum the other way. We kind of, but women can have it all now. So there's just really hard to find the balance in that and to sort of do both. But I do think when you're good at what you do and you're expressing yourself, you can give yourself that space. Because I wouldn't say I'm an unsuccessful career woman, and I took 7 years off, and it just is what it is. It's just a mindset. It's a belief.
Yeah.
I find it really, we've spoken a lot about being a mum, because obviously that's a lot of what we have in common, but there's more women than ever that are choosing not to have kids. And I think it's really interesting, because I've got lots of friends. I know lots of people, and I was, as a mum, a working mum, one of the minority in which, considering that there's, a huge percentage of women more in the beauty industry than men, I would have thought that I would be surrounded by like-minded mothers, and I wasn't. And I found that really refreshing, actually, because it gave that diverse thought. But it also meant that there were times where there wasn't a lot of empathy towards the balancing act that has to be done, and the demand and the pull. But more and more women than ever are choosing not to be mothers as well. And some, obviously, it's more difficult. And I think it doesn't really matter whether you're a mother or not, but I think a woman in the working world, there's enough challenges just doing that.
Then just when you to step off.
Exactly.
When do you sort of put the gas off your career and make space for that? And a lot of women have missed that gap or messed it up or worried too much. And, well, who knows? If I had been full throttle into ARgENTUM at that time, maybe there would have been some very different decisions. For me, I think the clarity came later in life. But I would just say to people, there's no such time as the right time. There's just the time. And when it happens, it happens, and you roll with it and you make it work.
And ignore the fear mongering. I think there's a lot, like I'm 37 this year, and at some point I, like my card that I pulled last week, another baby's going to come on at some point, I hope.
Yes, you had creator.
But I did get the creator. I actually went home and said, well, Joy says that we're going to have a baby. And he just started laughing and went, tell Joy to shush. We're not having it yet.
You've twisted my words.
No, I did. I said, I've pulled this card. It means we're having a baby soon. And he started laughing. But no, I think there is that pressure as well, though, I think, as a woman in the working world. And that I know from me in my 30s, I'm now entering that next stage of, I'm like, oh my God, I'm entering perimenopausal stage. And that terrifies me, because I was really fortunate enough that during my time at Pull, I worked with Theramex, which is one of the largest HRT providers in the UK, and had the privilege of speaking to some really incredible doctors and even politicians about the state of our health service and the support and knowledge that doctors and people have towards women's hormones in general. And I talk about matrescence, but obviously there's puberty. We go through big stages then. And I think a big everything kind of stops once you get to having that child, because that seems to be at the point you've done your job and you're not required anymore. And actually there's so many other stages of life for women that come in. And actually it's where I feel like we thrive sometimes, is when that pressure to reproduce has been taken away by choice or not or whatever. And actually the element of stage in life that I'm thinking about next is, while I obviously still want more children for me and my family and everything else, is I'm also afraid of what perimenopause looks like. And I know we've spoke about that, and there's lots of people.
It looks like me.
Oh, but you look,
But you look incredible.
I look like you when I
and this
grow
is
up.
like a testament to ARgENTUM's.
I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's a big part of ARgENTUM's approach. It's more than skin deep. It's something more than that. But I think it's helping and supporting people go through those stages of life. And it's, you know, I've spoke to so many people where they talk about age and stage, and we're all at different ages and stages of life. And what's united us in this conversation is that we're all business women. We're passionate, but we're also passionate about being mothers. But there's so much more, like you said, to us than that. And I think you lose it sometimes.
I had Jax at 44, and I was called it was a geriatric
I hate
pregnancy.
that term.
I was like, oh, geriatric pregnancy. You know, now I'm at the age I'm at now, and then I hear people having babies at 49 and 59. I'm like, oh, wow. Because it is exhausting, the sleepless nights. I just think we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. And, you know, women actually in a really unique position at this stage in society now where we can do both. We actually have the privilege and the opportunity to, and have the power to do both of these things. And it's how we care for ourselves as we do it, and how we balance that, because it's pretty tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm my toxic trait is thinking I can do it all and I'm really proud of that. Like, I will take any man on in the room. I'll arm wrestle you, and I will still try and win,
clearly
even though
we all
you're 4
do.
times the size of me. It's I don't know. I think it's that yin and yang. It's that balance. It is that kind of the science and the spiritual. It's the beauty and balance. It's all of those different things. I think that's what I love about ARgENTUM as well, is kind of the black and white element, and it is just about that. And I think I'd love to try and live in the grey a little bit more.
Bit more grey.
I'd love to live in the grey. I'd love 50 Shades of Grey in my life, for many, many reasons. But I'm still in my black and white era. I'm in my monochromatic era, but I'm moving towards 50 Shades.